the Poi world, so different people have different perspectives, but generally you're working with me, so probably knowing the vocabulary from my perspective makes the most sense. In the old days, when they first started talking about fountains, that I was aware of, so there may have been other people saying other things, there were two main fountains. There were three main fountains. There was this one where you go from the overhand weave to the underhand weave and back again. And it didn't matter if you started in overhand on your right or overhand on your left. But that was one fountain. The second fountain was the fountain with the waterfall, I guess people would call it, where it was the weave to the pinwheel, back to the weave. So this guy, although I'm not sure how people got, I don't know why they were calling the same thing, calling different moves the same thing, but okay. And then there was the third move I was aware of that was a fountain. And when I say back in the old days, I mean when you started, so like 20 years ago. There was also these buzzsaw fountains, right? And again, people were more likely to do the opposite direction buzzsaw fountain than people were to do an opposite direction weave fountain. But I always thought that people meant the same thing when they said them. So as things progressed, and then flowers were introduced, and Nick came out with his compound circles, and people started doing those, these guys. You could think of that as, well, it's just a figure eight that's really big, right? Because that's really all it is. So you could say it's basically just like a huge pinwheel, because it's kind of that. But you could also look at it like it's a 0-petal flower where you're going from side to side, which could be a 0-petal flower fountain. But I started calling them swivels, and I started calling them swivels because of the physiology that you use to make them happen. So even if you go back, I think it's less true with the buzzsaw fountain, which is more subtle, but if you go back to, let's say we go back to the underhand weave, you'll notice as I'm doing this, now this is because I'm a dancer probably, and I execute this like a dancer, you'll notice that I'm using a T-spans that we've used since beginning when we were doing these sweeps, which in a sense, I think the Chasing the Sun is a fountain of sorts, because my perspective on a fountain over time has transitioned into a fountain is a swivel. They are the same concept where you're moving side to side from one direction to its companion. So like when you were doing these flowers, even when you're going from this to this, I would say that's a swivel. And it's just an opposite direction swivel versus the same direction swivel. And for me, the thing that distinguishes it is the driving force of turning from your side plane to your side plane using the compared panion directions. And what I mean by that is either both same directions, overhand and underhand, overhand and underhand, or both opposite directions where you're using left over, right under, so side opposite left, and right over, left under, side opposite right. So I look at those as the two pairs.